Hey everyone, good morning. Nathan Strager with LrS&x International here in Las Vegas and Coldwell Banker West in California. My guest today, we just did a segment, but I thought it was really important to keep him around to do a second segment. Extremely knowledgeable in the real estate game. Has been in the business as a lender for over 30 years. I just found out, and I just found out he was a writer. So I'm really blown away with that. But I have Tony Medina here with Town Square Mortgage. Good morning.
Good morning.
Thank you
for the invite.
Thank you for being here. We just did another segment and I was really blown away with a lot of the knowledge, and I could see how passionate you are about helping people, and that really means a lot. And I think that's really admirable, and I think it's really important that people get somebody that really cares. And you do everything. You do everything from jumbo to ITIN to everything, and I think that's important to be diverse and not pigeonholed into one thing or another.
Correct.
So this segment, I just want to talk about the importance of having a long-term investment strategy in real estate. I think it's extremely important. I think that we work so hard and we get so caught up in the 9 to 5 and picking up that check that we don't realize that anything can happen. We can have some crazy disease or break a leg or family member passes or whatever. So I think it's extremely important to have a long-term investment strategy moving forward because things continue to go up, right? So what is the importance of having a long-term investments, and just in general, even if you're an entrepreneur or a blue-collar worker?
So if we talk about real estate and owning a home, and I learned this, I bought my first house when I was 19, and to me it was a no-brainer. So I buy a house, I'm just going to pick any numbers, I'm going to make up numbers. Buy a house for $300,000, right? I put 5% down, which I saved. In today's market, the seller could help with closing costs, that's common. And now I'm going to collect $2,000 a month in rent. Let's say that my mortgage is $2,000 or it's $2,200, doesn't matter. In a period of 30 years, somebody else paid that house for me. Right? So I have that investment. Once that property is paid off, it's all passive income.
Right.
So what I've done in the past, when the times that I've owned investment property, is I keep paying down the mortgage because I want that property to be paid off as soon as possible. And if I own multiple homes, there's been times that you sell a house, get enough profit, then pay off all the other loans. So now you have all these, most of that income, it's free, spendable, passive income.
Yeah, and to break it down into 3 different categories, the importance of having a long-term investment strategy is, one, if you're able to get to that point where you have 10, 15, 20 homes pulling in income for you, you could take a trip. You don't have to work.
Well, if you own 10 homes and each home is giving you a net flow of $2,000 a month, it's $20,000 passive income.
Right.
The property's still there.
Right.
That money is going to continue to come in, right? That beats Social Security and most retirements.
And the balance is being paid down.
Correct.
So, if those rates change or whatever, you could always refi to a better rate, and now you have more passive income from that, and the second level to that would be, the guy or the family that has their primary residence, has some extra money and wants to buy a second home to rent out, or even a third. I think that helps them in going on a family vacation or the kids' college fund or other things,
Put money away for retirement and retire earlier.
Absolutely. And one thing that you brought up was the first-time home buyer, a long-term investment for the first-time home buyer. You don't get a tax write-off for renting. You don't get a tax write-off when you have to, fix something in that rental that your landlord won't fix. But you get those write-offs in owning your home, Yeah. So elaborate on that as far as like a first-time home buyer that, I think a lot of people think, oh, the rates are so high and I don't want to buy and et cetera. But you're better getting into something and refining later. At least you have something where you can start, creating some type of long-term benefit where you're gaining equity.
Yeah, and interesting. I don't know if we talked about this yet, but there's a trend within the first-time home buyer market, $400,000 range and under. they're converting garages into studios.
Yeah.
That's huge.
Yeah.
And I was just reading a report last week where a lot of Americans, not only happening here in Vegas, but nationwide, are going back to roommating.
Yeah.
Right? I just had a lady on Friday that I took a nap, and she said, I have a friend or a family member that wants to rent a room from me. Now, I probably wouldn't do that, but it makes sense what they're telling me. They go, instead of me paying all this money for rent, I could do this and my cash flow will be better. I go, well, that makes sense.
I do see that happen a lot. And now that I'm licensed in California, what's common is ADUs. So here, everybody's converting garages. They're able to build a secondary residence on the property.
Correct.
And have a completely, here in Vegas, it's not common because the city really doesn't allow you to do it. So that kind of brings me to my next question is, what do you think is the better long-term investment? Do you think it's better to do long-term rentals or Airbnb?
I like Airbnb.
Okay.
Just because the margin is better.
Yeah.
Right? You could make more money. If you work with the right people, and I know you're very knowledgeable about that, so customer that's watching the video reaches out to you, guarantee you're going to have a really, really good, knowledgeable agent, right? I like Airbnb. If you're building a portfolio of products, I always believe in balancing, right? So I would definitely have a couple of properties that are long-term,
Okay.
a couple of properties that are Airbnb with license.
Okay.
You got to license them. And I like flips too.
It's hard to find flips nowadays.
Correct.
But
we're talking in the future,
sure.
right? And I believe in the near future, in the next 12 to 18 months, you're going to have a lot of opportunities for flips. I'm buying one today for a flip.
that's amazing. Congratulations. I also think things have changed. Back in the day, it was don't get in that car with a stranger. Now there's Uber. You're in the car with a stranger every
Right.
single
I
time,
like that, yeah. That's right.
So, before it was, don't go sleep with somebody, now Airbnb, it's so profitable. So what do you think is a better investment, residential or commercial?
For the savvier investor and somebody that's already owned residential, I would say commercial.
Okay.
To start up residential, there's so much you got to learn about it, right? And you could read books, you could watch the YouTube videos, and you could go to seminars and things like that. But the experience of going through that, dealing with a tenant, dealing with insurance or lender or the city and things like that, is good that you build some experience.
I think I agree with you. I think you need to start somewhere. I think if you're able to, I think there's less competition in commercial, a lot less competition, because I have 50 investors every week calling me, do you have something? Do you have something? Everybody takes these seminars, buy houses with no money down. It's all just, anyways, I'll get into that another day. But I think commercial, there's more profit, there's less competition, it's quicker. Now with everything being bought online, you don't have retail centers anymore.
Correct.
These retail centers are empty.
Correct. So what sector of commercials do you like more right now?
I love, if it was me, I would, so obviously if I'm able to pick up anything industrial, because everything now is shopping online, everything now is, order online, ship it.
Warehouses.
Everything is warehouse. Everything is warehouse. That's my absolute number one. And you can't find industrial land. Industrial land right now in Vegas is 1.2 to 1.5 million an acre. Residential land is dropped 25-30%, but industrial land continues to rise. And you have these retail, these smaller retail centers. We have these mom and pop shops. Those are gone now. Mm-hmm. These office buildings that used to have a whole company in there, everybody's working from home.
Right.
So,
but that's coming back though. People are coming back to the offices. Not, my personal opinion, not at the same level that we were at, the same percentage we were in the past, but they're coming back.
But we were talking about one of your businesses being VAs.
Correct.
You don't hire receptionists anymore, and they're in the office and they're there and whatnot. Like my marketing person, my receptionist, my assistants, everybody's VAs.
Correct.
You can work from home now.
What is a VA?
Virtual assistant.
For the people that don't know.
Oh yeah, sorry. A VA, virtual assistant. You're right. And I think if you're able to go in there with an empty retail center or an empty office building and work with the city on rezoning or repurposing the building, maybe to a smaller, maybe like office warehouse or something like that, it's going to benefit the community. It's going to benefit the city because they don't have an empty building sitting there. It's going to get spray painted or vandalized or whatnot. So if you can, even if it's a small retail center or small office building, I think it's better to say, go to the city and say, hey, I'm going to take this empty building that has graffiti all over it, repurpose it, turn it into this. I need your approval because you have to go in front of the planning commission. It is a longer process than like buying a residential, changing the floor, carpet, blah, blah, blah. But it's also bigger margins.
Yeah.
You know?
It's interesting because you're very knowledgeable about that. And I've spoken to several investors, and you seem to be more up to date and knowledgeable with that type of market than most people.
Well, one of the things that when I got into real estate in the second year in the business, I had a client give me an $11 million apartment complex. And instead of me giving it to somebody that specializes in that, I said, no, I'm going to figure it out. I'm not going to make 20% of $11 million. I'm going to figure it out. And I researched the launches, rent rolls, cap rates, and I sold it and I made it happen. But I don't pigeonhole myself into one area of real estate or another. My broker, he's the man. He does luxury. That's his thing, and he smashes it. But he wouldn't do like he wouldn't normally go outside of his comfort zone. Not in his comfort zone, but what he really specializes in. Because that's just what he dominates. Me, if somebody calls me for anything other than a rental, I can do it, and I have knowledge. I've done land, commercial, etc. So.
And for the people watching, the Nate owns commercial real estate.
I do. I've developed real estate. I've went through the process. Yeah, it's important, but you don't know it. You don't know until you do it.
Correct.
You don't know the hurdles, but after you do it, you have all this knowledge because you can't replicate that knowledge unless you actually go through it. So I know we were talking about this in another segment, but to kind of touch on it again, because we are talking about long-term investments. What are some of the investments that you have?
So I believe in balance.
Okay.
Right, balance in life, having a purpose. One of the things that influences people is the finances.
Right.
And one of the most important things. So the first thing and I know one of the questions is, what do I teach my kids? And I got 3 kids and 3 boys, 3 sons. And what I tell them first is you got to have an emergency fund. Something happens, you got to have 3-6 months put away for the emergency. You also got to have a long-term retirement investment, right? And we could talk about that, right? It might not be the number one vehicle, but you gotta have something, especially when you're building the habit of creating wealth or creating investment. It's an easy thing to do. Go to your employer, and it's easy to set up a 401k to one of those, right? Then I have some stocks, and I have some crypto, which stocks are not performing, crypto's not performing, but to me that's long term, right? But the biggest sector would be real estate. Right. I just sold a house, the peak of the market. I timed it right, and I got some money from that investment to keep investing in real estate.
You were smart because you sold at the height. You waited for it to drop, and you say you just closed on a house, right?
And closed into it. But this one is an investment.
Right. That's what I'm saying. You were able to cash out, make more money, just like the stock market. You cash out high, buy low, right?
And it's interesting because we're talking about real estate, right? And I don't want to come across as the, wow, man, this guy is such an expert or such an amazing investor. I'm just normal like most people, right?
But it's time and knowledge. You had to go through that.
Yeah. So the property that I bought at the right time a couple of years ago gave me enough money to buy this investment cash, right? And that's something that doesn't happen all the time. It doesn't happen to all people. But it does happen often.
Right. But it's like you said, you had to start somewhere. You had to build your way up.
Correct.
So you have 3 boys?
I got 3 boys.
How old?
Don't want to say the ages.
Okay.
No. 33, 25, and 16.
Okay. And what are you teaching your boys as far as investing, and are any of them in the real estate industry?
So I've always wanted them to understand that they have to invest in themselves.
Right.
Right? You got to know yourself. You got to have a balance in life, spiritual life, your mindset, how to control your emotions, your relationships, business. They're all business driven. My oldest son, he's a real estate agent, number 2 or 3 in his company with
awesome.
hundreds of agents. Very focused, has a family. I'm a grandfather.
Wow.
Got two grandkids. Love them, keep me. It's a part of my a stage of my life that I'm enjoying. So he's self-employed as a real estate agent and as an investor in real estate too. He has that mindset of investing. My second son, my middle son, he's also self-employed. He's starting his first Airbnb this year.
That's great.
And my youngest son, he's 16, and boy, like I was with him this weekend, and man, I was like that when I was 16. He's telling me all these videos that he's watching online about business, about marketing, about all these things, and I love talking to them because sometimes you forget the basics.
Right. I agree with you, and I think the generation now has a leg up, because back then we just had dictionary and encyclopedias, and whatever we were taught in school was what we were taught in school. We really weren't taught to go out there and take risks, and they teach you in school good things, but they didn't tell you how to balance a checkbook. Correct. or
buy a house,
and I think all that stuff is extremely important. And we had a conversation earlier about the whole point of this content is to explain to people, look, it doesn't matter if you work a 9 to 5 or you're an entrepreneur, you have to invest in yourself long term. And we were talking about, if you are a 9 to 5 and you're investing in your retirement and you work 30, 40 years, what you're putting in, that minimal amount, isn't gonna help you when you actually retire 30, 40 years from now, because inflation is gonna be so high, you're not gonna be able to make that mortgage payment or pay for your meds or do whatnot. So it's so important to invest, even if it's starting with a small condo and kind of building up and going from there. And that's why I think it's important to have you here to explain to people, hey, I've been doing this for a while. I started in the 90s, but I slowly worked my way up. And then now I'm selling at the height and I'm buying at low. It's cash and it's passive. And my son hears me speak and he's doing his own research and he's learning a lot from you. I'm not going to say more than what's in school, but this is life.
Correct.
Life. Whenever you take your real estate test or your loan officer test, I just took mine in California a few months ago. I'm like, I'm not going to use this stuff.
Correct.
Teach me something I'm going to use on a daily basis so I can make more money. So, doing these videos to help people understand, wow, I didn't know that. Wow, I didn't know that. Oh, I can do that. Oh, you're right. That is going to help me in the future. Like you said, you're paying $2,000 a month. Over 10 years, you're paying over $200,000. You could have paid that house off, or at least close to it, had all that equity and helped yourself and not the landlord.
Right. And I tell you who's in a really good position is a first-time home buyer, right?
Yeah.
You buy a house for $300,000-$400,000,
Yeah.
right? In today's market, you could buy that with zero out-of-pocket money. And then a couple of years from now, you want to move up, right? So now you could rent that property, which you bought with little money down, and then the next property you could still buy with 3-5%.
Yep.
So that's how easy it is to build your first rental. If not, as an investor, you got to put 15 to 20% down. And by the way, right now, and I know there was one of the questions, one of the trends right now is people buying investment properties. More than I've seen in the last a few years. And we have a program, and there's a program out there that would allow you to buy a house using the rental income to qualify.
I had no idea.
Yeah.
So I think that's important. And, it's just letting people know, hey, these are the options.
Yeah, and that program, you could even use that to buy a home that you're planning to do short-term rentals like Airbnb.
Right.
And I'm telling you, I just closed 2 last month I got a contract accepted last night for another customer, and that's what they're doing.
What are your personal financial goals for 2023 and beyond?
So I feel personally that we're gonna have opportunities in stocks. Crypto is gonna bounce back, but at some point, but I could buy at a good price today. So I'm investing in those two. I'm investing more than I've ever had in the past in real estate. So those are part of my financial goals. I want to build that up, but I also have other businesses that I see there's a big need out there, and I'm investing capital, time, resources to build those, because those businesses to me, and a lot of people own their own business, and sometimes you do really good, other times you don't, and I feel the businesses that I'm investing are going to produce really, really good financial rewards in the next 2 to 5 years.
I think this segment that we're having and the previous one, we've always talked about investing into real estate, crypto, stocks, blah, blah. But don't get caught up in buying the Rolex, the car, the BS that's not going to make you money. You want to have assets, not liabilities, something that's going to make you money. Granted, the watch market went crazy during COVID, but now it's dropped significantly. So don't get caught up in the Instagram garbage.
Correct.
Of like, oh, I have this nice car,
Vanity, right?
and I have this watch, and I'm at this dinner, but then they go home to an apartment with 3 roommates. It's really, really, you can get that stuff later.
Correct.
Don't be impatient. I don't know if you watch Gary Vee, and there's people that make fun of Gary Vee. They're like, I'm 80 years old. And he's like, you're so young, But you really do have to understand that it takes time, and you cannot be impatient. And especially kids that are starting at 16 or 20 or 23 or whatever, man, you have your whole life in front of you to invest. So don't get caught up in the Instagram or TikTok fame. That's not going to benefit you. That buying that watch or buying that car is not going to make you money. Long-term investment. That's what we're talking about, right?
And I think both of us own a decent car. I mean, it's nice, right? It's new, right?
I love my car.
Yeah. But we both could afford a much better car.
I could.
Or a more expensive, more luxurious car.
But I don't want to.
Correct.
I don't want that payment.
Correct.
The only thing I'm going to upgrade to is a electric BMW when it comes out. But I'm trying to save money.
Correct.
Long term.
Yeah, that money that you would pay for that additional funds
is going to gas.
For that luxury car, you invest.
Would go to gas, right? But instead of having an engine that's going to burn out, it's a go-kart. It's a go-kart for 150,000 miles, 200,000 miles. I saw Teslas are going like 300,000 miles, and you just keep going, just replace the battery and roll. So, I appreciate all of your knowledge, and, we're talking about investing, and that's what the point of these segments is, to say, hey, it doesn't matter where you are in your life, how old you are, whether you had to file bankruptcy, whether you went through divorce, whether you had whatever, whether you fell on hard times, work. Don't take that money and invest into, like I said, something that's not going to bring you money long term, because you don't want to get into your 50s and then look at it and say, oh shit, maybe I should start investing right now. Correct. Let me start. It's never too late to start.
Correct.
But if you would have started earlier, and you can still have balance, right? You can still take those trips, blah, blah. But do what's going to benefit you long term. Also live your life and have fun and party, blah, blah, when you're young. But don't just throw it away and always be broke.
Correct.
So
yeah, you have a part of your life you gotta have those investments.
Yeah.
And maybe this is something that you've never done, and you're kind of, okay, that makes sense. Let me start doing it now.
Right.
Maybe you're 50, 60, 70 or whatever, and you're gonna start doing it now.
Right.
But you might have children, grandchildren,
right,
and you could educate them on
right.
that. I had this conversation with my 16-year-old kid yesterday, and he was like, wow. Because I said, I want you to start doing this now when you're 16.
Right.
Because I regret, if I would have known.
If somebody would have told you.
I would have done it.
But our parents didn't know.
Not mine.
They were just told, work, die. You know, I was just saying something, and we'll kind of wrap this up, that the average life expectancy is 78 years old, but you work until you're almost 67.
Correct.
So you have 11 years of life and you're older. Why? You can still have balance and have long-term investments. So
I agree.
Tell people how they can find you.
You could go to my website, www.teammedina.com. Call me, 702-591-7725.
Appreciate all your knowledge. Great conversation, and very, very interesting. I'm glad that you're teaching your kids to, invest early.
And I appreciate the invite. And just as a final note, I work with over, a couple of dozen, 30, 40 different agents that refer me business. And I have to say that I enjoy working with you. We've been working together for a long time. And I love the way you do business. You could sell a multi-million-dollar home. You could sell a $200,000 home. You treat people the same, with respect and with the same amount of knowledge. And I've seen you negotiating, right. And you're a killer. You know how to negotiate.
I appreciate that. I really, people see the brand Luxury Estates International, and my broker Cameron, that's his vision. But for me, Luxury Estates International is all about white glove service. And whether you're buying a $200,000 house or you're buying a $2 million house, you're spending thousands of dollars for this agent, and it's important to give them that service.
Yeah.
So.
And I could testify for that.
Well, I appreciate you being here,
right.
and we'll see you on the next one.
All right. Great.
Thanks.